Welcome to this session with me. In this particular time together, I want to cover a subject which I would have to say, after easily 60 years of battling with it and being looked down as needing to be saved, some people who comment on my YouTube channel that, "Sir, you need to get saved," because I'm talking about a subject that has been abdicated by the majority of evangelicals in my growing up years, for sure. I'm now a month away from being 78 years old. You just don't hear people preaching about the judgment seat of Christ. And so people think that I'm some sort of aberrant that is making something up, and I've not heard the message of grace, and that I skipped out on all of that, and I'm coming up with some doctrine of works. And some of the comments that are made toward me on my YouTube channel are quite severe and very saddening, because it reveals the ignorance of the church on this subject to a great extent. There obviously are pockets of people who have some understanding of it, but largely and overall, this teaching has been abdicated. And if you wonder if that's true or not, just check out the doctrinal statements of church after church after church or seminary. They will go down the list. We believe in one God who is Father, Son, and Spirit. We believe this and this, that. But when it comes to this matter of the believer's judgment, silent. As I mentioned on another video, I only found two that mentioned anything. One was David Jeremiah, and the other one was Charles Stanley. And Charles Stanley has the best dealing with that. And in a book that he wrote a number of years ago, I think it was 1990, he wrote concerning the eternal security. Of course, this is a hot topic too, because you see passages of Scripture which, if you're just dealing with saved and lost, will make you think some of those verses are hinting that you could lose your salvation. It's not your salvation, that's your reward. And what goes along with that, and the chastening and the disciplining and all those kinds of things. But that's been also totally abdicated in Christian teaching in my lifetime. So by the majority, there are pockets around the world who still hold to some of these things and make them part of their actual daily thinking and teaching, but by and large, it's really vanished from the screen. So I want to read some excerpts from a book, which was a textbook I had when I was in Bible college from 1967 to 71 in a conservative Baptist Bible college, where this was the textbook on the subject of things to come: eschatology, the rapture, the tribulation, all those kinds of things, wrapped up into this one particular textbook. And the textbook was a work by Pentecost. Dwight Pentecost. I have a little excerpt here that I want to read you regarding him, just to introduce you to him. And you can look up all these things; they're all on the internet. Dr. John Dwight Pentecost, 1915 to 2014, was an American pastor and professor of Bible exposition at the Dallas Theological Seminary. In his 6 decades on the Dallas Theological Seminary faculty, he taught more than 10,000 students, who affectionately called him Dr. P. He also wrote 21 books, including his best known, Things to Come, which is what the book I'm going to read from today. A biblical study on end time events. I just feel like I need to appeal to decency and fairness. I have battled with this for decades with evangelical believers who have never been taught never considered these passages of scripture, and they look at me as though I'm from someplace on Mars and that I'm a heretic, and so they don't take what I want to say to them. It's all fine, but it's based on ignorance, and that's the thing that troubles me, is because we have become, as a church, so biblically ignorant. Other than we think, well, we need to pray a prayer so when we die we can go to heaven and be with Jesus and not end up in hell. So I've marked some pages in here, and again I ask you to be patient with me, because this is like if you were sitting in my living room here with me, I'd be doing the same thing. I'm not trying to pretend to be an orator here or anything like that. I just want to read some excerpts from this book by Dwight Pentecost, Things to Come, published in 1965. Okay, there's a section here on page 220, and it's a subheading under B, and it says, the time of the bema of Christ. The bema is an interchangeable word. It's the Greek word for how we come up with the judgment seat of Christ. And every born again believer will come and stand before the Lord and individually have their works weighed before the mighty God, the Creator, the Redeemer, all of that. To see of what sort, Paul writes, to see of what sort they are. What are they? So, the time of the bema of Christ. The event herein describes take place immediately following the translation of the church out of this earth's sphere. Now, I'm not affirming Dwight Pentecost in all of his writings here. I'm reading to you out of this book for the purpose that this book is like next to the Bible in a lot of the Bible colleges and seminaries, where these thousands of preachers from Dallas Theological Seminary are being prepared to go into the pulpits. There are several considerations. In the first place, according to Luke 14:14, reward is associated with the resurrection, since according to 1 Thessalonians 4:13-17, the resurrection is an integral part of the translation. Reward must be part of that program. When the Lord returns to the earth with his bride to reign, the bride is seen to be already rewarded. See, when the Lord returns to the earth with his bride, not staying in heaven, being in heaven. This is observed in Revelation 19:8, where it must be observed, I'll really pay attention here, where it must be observed that the righteousnesses of the saints is plural and cannot refer to the imparted righteousness of Christ. It cannot refer to that, which is the believer's portion, but the righteousnesses which have survived examination and have become the basis of reward, from in 1 Corinthians 4:5, 2 Timothy 4:8, Revelation 22:12. The reward is associated with that day. That is the day in which he comes for his own. Thus it must be observed that the rewarding of the church must take place between the rapture and the revelation of Christ to the earth. That particular point could be debated. But what I'm emphasizing here is he's stating from Revelation 19, verse 8, that the righteousnesses of the saints is plural and cannot refer to the imparted righteousness. He's making a very clear distinction between the righteousness that we receive imputed, Christ's righteousness, when we believe, versus the righteous acts of the saints, the righteousness of the saints. And this is what forms the wedding garment to allow us to be invited into the wedding. Okay, let me find a few more here. There are so many good ones. The believer's works are brought into judgment, called the things done in his body, in order that it may be determined whether they are good or bad. Concerning the word bad, and he gives the Greek word, I don't pretend to try and pronounce it, It is to be observed that Paul did not use the usual word for bad. That's sort of the street language, right? Either of which would signify that which is ethically or morally evil, but rather the word which, according to Trench, who is another Greek scholar, means the following: evil under another aspect, not so much that either of activity or passivity, malignity, but that rather of its good for nothing, the impossibility of any true gain ever coming forth from it. This notion of worthlessness is the central thought. Come to nothing. This is what Paul said, that he would not want to be put to shame at his coming. All these implication statements are profoundly available in the scripture. See here. Yeah. When Paul uses the word castaway, I would be a castaway. Lest after I preach to others, I become a castaway. He's not talking about losing his salvation here. Oh, we have got this so messed up. When Paul uses the word castaway, he is not expressing fear that he will lose his salvation, but rather that which he has done shall be found to be good for nothing. On this word, Trench writes, in classical Greek, it is the technical word for putting money to the dokimi, or proof by aid of the, or test that which endures, this proof being approved, that which fails, disapproved or rejected, to safeguard against the possible interpretation that to suffer loss means the loss of salvation. Paul adds, he himself shall be saved, yet as through fire. There will be rewards, and there will be the loss of rewards. Now, we haven't even covered this in evangelicalism for decades now, and we don't deal with the consequences of the loss of the reward either. So in these few minutes here, I just want to touch on a few of these things. The very word that Paul chooses to describe the rewards is that associated with honor, dignity bestowed on the overcomer. The overcomer. All Revelation chapter 2 and 3, to every church, the Spirit calls to those who overcome, to those who overcome. And evangelical Christianity and famous preachers have taken the passage in 1 John about the fact that you have faith, that you're an overcomer. That's not addressing the context of the overcomers in the rest of the two chapters of Revelation, chapter 2 and 3. To every single church, he says, he who overcomes, I will give, I will do, I will place. These are all promises made to those who overcome. So here at the judgment seat of Christ, we will all be evaluated for the works that we've done in our life after we came to know the Lord. It's not just a slam dunk, everything is great. And in here he talks about, let me read this part. I'm running out of time here. The apostle has affirmed that there are two classes of building materials which the labors together with God. Many may use in the building the emphasis upon the foundation already laid, the gold, silver, costly stones, and indestructible materials. These are the work of God, which man only appropriates and uses. On the other hand, the wood, hay, and stubble are destructible materials. These are the work of men, which man has produced by his own effort. I need to stop here. I think I'll do one more on this.